What's up, guys? It's game time. Okay, a couple days ago, I published a rather lengthy deck tech of my collaborative effort new commander deck, affectionately known as Bullszat, that I've been building for the last couple of months and working on with Nate Prodzik. And at the very tail end of that video, I mentioned that there were going to be some games in the pipeline. I've decided it's time to start recording those, and I'll be posting them every couple of days, I think, over the next week or so. There are about 4 or 5 that are worthy of videos. This one, it was actually shot back on, I think, the 2nd of July, so a little over a month ago, I guess a month and a week or so. And small caveat, the deck was definitely still a bit of a work in progress, although you notice it's got Smokestack in it already, and Smokestack was a rather seemingly recent innovation. I think the deck we'd been iterating on the deck for about a month at that point, and it was definitely starting to resemble a pretty streamlined form that was quite similar to the version that I had in the video, although it was still quite a few cards different. I think maybe 4 to 5 at that point. It's neat to go back actually and look at the deck list from the very first video, or at least the very first games that I was playing with it, and I think we've changed it probably 19 to 20 cards since the original prototype. We're probably on version 6, 7.0 at this point. But I'm up against the ever-polite McDonk. McDonk is running Tymna, Kraum, pretty common partner combo for hyper-competitive decks. You can expect usually 2 finishers in decks like this, as they have access to every color but green. And their 2 primary finishers tend to be the omnipresent and extremely oppressive Thassa's Oracle plus either Demonic Consultation or Tainted Pact combo. And they have a secondary layer of degeneracy in the combination of Underworld Breach and Brain Freeze, which I'll admit is a combo that was kind of off my radar until Nate started running into it all the time. For those who aren't familiar with that combo, it is quite an engine. Underworld Breach, 1 red, 1 generic, says you can play all your cards in your graveyard can be played again. They actually don't gain flashback. You can just play them by exiling 3 additional cards from your graveyard to pay the casting cost. And one huge difference between Underworld Breach and Yawgmoth's Will is that the cards go back in the graveyard again. So you can either use them to fuel other cards from the graveyard, or you can cast them repeatedly. And when you're playing with Brain Freeze, if you Brain Freeze yourself, let's say you play Underworld Breach, you Brain Freeze yourself for maybe, I don't know, you play a couple spells and Brain Freeze yourself for 3. That gives you 9 cards. So you remove 3 of those and you Brain Freeze yourself again, and now it storms 4 times and you get 12 cards in the graveyard, and then you cast it again on yourself, and very quickly you have enough fuel to start chain casting the Brain Freezes on your opponent to deck them. And very compact, very explosive, just like the other combo. It only requires 2 cards. And although it needs a tiny bit of assistance, you need cards in hand to really get it going usually, unless you've got some cantrips and stuff waiting in play. Either way, they're both really, really degenerate, and I think extremely unfortunate and oppressive effects in this format. And it's probably a video for another time, but certainly it shows the general complacency of the Rules Committee in tamping down those really hyper-degenerate strategies that kill the whole table. Although I guess the Brain Freeze combo, a little harder to kill a ton of opponents with it, although once you rev it up a bit and you've cast 5 or 6 Brain Freezes, you probably can deck the whole table with it, depending on where you are in the game. Pretty nuts, and by nature of the fact that it's Storm, it means that simple counterspells won't stop it either. All right, I'm just going to get to the game here. There's plenty of other games in the pipeline for you guys to enjoy, and whenever I'm fetching during the video, I will highlight differences between this version and the version that I published a couple of days ago. You can actually see one in hand right now. This card was cut mainly because it does fetch a swamp out of the deck, but we're only running 2 swamps and a single basic mountain right now, and it's not unreasonable that Prismatic Vista simply would not have a target early. And getting red is usually not that important either. The deck has quite a bit of redundancy in red and not a big dependency on red. And those factors alone, the fact that it makes you a little bit more vulnerable to opposition agent, blood moon effects and stuff, just is one of the reasons why we decided to cut the card. And I haven't really missed it since I removed it. Rest of my hand, pretty slow, but I kind of figure that well, actually, I'm not even sure if I mulligan this hand. Let's see. Yeah, I guess I did ultimately determine that the hand, while playable, was a little bit on the slow side. And I know that McDonk is a competitive playing CEDH here and likely to have a fast start. And I wanted to have more interaction than just a turn 3 Duretti. So I did mulligan the hand. This is much, much better. You can actually see another card that's different. We were running both Grief and Unmask for a while, as they seem sort of the orthodoxy for this kind of a build and competitive commander, and ultimately elected to remove them because not only are they a little inconsistent in terms of their effect, but if you're mulliganing at all, actually, the hand size loss is just devastating. You can often draw into Grief or Unmask and not even have a black card to feed to them, or not have a black card you can feed to them. So for example, imagine if Hymn to Torak is a red card or it's just another land, then do I really want to Grief and remove Culling the Weak to Unmask on turn 1 or whatever? It's just totally not worth it. So with that in mind, we ultimately decided to cut these two. But they were in the deck a month and a half ago, and they'll be featured in this game. So McDonk, I believe, is not mulliganing. I am at least going first. And looking at this hand, it's pretty difficult, honestly. There's a lot of different ways to play this. But I ultimately determined that deflecting Swat... I gave some thought to throwing away the Grief, using Chrome Mox to imprint Hymn to Torak, and going for the turn 1, Culling the Weak, Chrome Mox into the Commander. But the thing about that is that I don't really know what he has. If he has Dark Ritual and... if he has... I guess if he has Force of Will or Pact of Negation, he could... I can just deflect that back onto the SWAT. I don't know. It's hard to say. I ultimately decided that I was going to go for a turn 2... Tevish Zat instead of trying to do it on turn 1, and realized that just paving the way with Hymn to Torak would probably be better than just holding on to deflecting SWAT. So I ultimately went with that plan. So SWAT goes to the bottom of the deck. McDonk, I believe, mulliganed as well. Yeah, it looks like he did too. So I'm going to go turn 1 Swamp. So the question is what to do here. I can play Grief and remove Hymn to Torak from my hand and duress him, or I can do the other play of imprinting Grief onto Chrome Mox and casting Hymn to Torak instead. And since I'm planning on casting the Tevish that turn 2, it makes the most sense, I think, to go for the Hymn to Torak play. If he has Force or if he has Pact of Negation, it'll definitely draw one of those spells from his hand and soften his hand either way. And it might be so devastating and disruptive, he may not even have a turn 1 play, depending on what it hits. Because after mulliganing, he might have a hand with only 1 or 2 mana sources, and if I can hit one of those, he's really going to cripple his game plan. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go for the imprint Grief and him. Can't go wrong with turn 1 him, right? And I get Exotic Orchard and Gamble. Fantastic. He would have only been able to make black, but assuming he's got red in hand, Gamble on turn 1, pretty gnarly. So we'll see what he's got. Mox Diamond and Gemstone Caverns. Wow, very interesting, actually. It's a pretty risky play against me. I don't have any access to red, but he's got to assume that I might have red and a way to kill his Mox Diamond. But if your opponent plays turn 1 Mox Diamond, there's got to be a reason for it generally, unless they just have literally nothing else that they can do. So this makes me think he's got a card like maybe Tithe, although that card is quite underplayed. He might just have Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor, might have something like Mana Tithe or Force Spike. Could also have, I don't know, I could have like some kind of removal spell, Swords of Plowshares, Path to Exile, maybe Lightning Bolt, lots of different cards. But he certainly played it for a reason here, so I do have to consider that. All right, I draw Marsh Flats, pretty handy. I'm going to play Rogue Ra here, since I have to just gobble him up with Culling the Weak. And I'm playing this, of course, to play around Force Spike or Mana Tithe. And this goes to the command zone. And my opponent has a remarkable response to this. And quite unexpected, he casts Silence. Shit. And that means I can't even replay Rogue Ra next turn either. This is quite a good answer to Culling the Weak. Fortunately, I'm only just culling away a 0-drop. But not bad. Now I understand why he did it. And I've got 4 black in my pool I can't do anything on, which is pretty brutal. All right, back to McDonk. He does only have 2 cards in hand by nature of the fact that he got hymned, mulliganed, cast the Silence, and played a Mox Diamond. So not going to offer a lot of resistance here, and he certainly can't cast Tymna. He just passes the turn back to me. All right. I'm just going to play another fetch land here. Replay Rogue Ra, since there's little else to do. When you're playing this deck, definitely don't be reluctant to play Rogue Ra, even if you don't have anything to immediately activate it or interact with it, because a fair amount of the time, I mean, obviously this is a no-brainer situation given that I have nothing else to spend mana on, but a fair amount of the time you actually can just you'll top deck into things that Rogue Ra cares about. You might draw the Tome, you might draw the Sword of Feast and Famine, you might draw Skull Clamp. There's a lot of different things that interact with him right away, and obviously its interaction with the commander is real too, although I can't. That's true. He actually didn't counter Tevish Zat. So he's going to Mystical Tutor in step, okay? He gets a Wheel. Uh-oh. All right. And he's got Mana Crypt. Pretty gnarly. And Wheel. Wow, okay. Game on. And, of course, I have no answer to that. Other than clicking forward here. Hello? Okay, there we go. So he lost Draneth Magistrate. Wow. Honestly, a little interesting for him to just not play Drannith Magistrate right away, given that that shuts down my commander. So by playing Wheel of Fortune over Drannith Magistrate, he's essentially conceding that I'm going to be able to play my commander. Drannith Magistrate, super, super annoying and disruptive card in this format. Very problematic for Bullszat, actually, given our dependency on the commander and the fact that you can't play either commander from the command zone with that creature in play and until you get rid of it. And that can often be, I don't know, just devastating. You can't do anything for many, many turns. And you don't run a ton of spot removal. Okay, he's got Arid Mesa. All right, so I elect not to sack these. Decide to just see what I draw first. All right, Liliana of the Veil. So he's got 1 mana untapped and 6 cards in hand. I could just run out Karn the Great Creator, which feels very satisfying, but this eats up my entire turn if I do it, and ultimately I decide that I'd rather not do that. As powerful as this play is, I do have really good redundancy in my hand with both Byforce and Shattering Spree. Particularly Shattering Spree, it prevents him from being able to really counter effectively due to the fact that it has Replicate. And so as much as I'd love to just slam Karn on this board right here, which certainly makes sense, I decide that Shattering Spree is not only the cheaper, but much more effective way to go. So I'm going to do that instead. I'm going to sack that first. Let's go get Badlands. I believe I get... Okay, so I'm just going to play Graven Cairns. Double red here. And I'm going to blow up both of those artifacts. Sorry, I just got to make sure I do it correctly. And the fact that it's replicated means even if he has something like Mental Misstep or whatever, he's not going to be able to stop them both. Sure enough, double shatter. So satisfying for 2 mana. All right, so the question is what to do now. I've got a bunch of choices here. I can ritual out Tevesh Zat, or I can be a little bit more, I guess I can play Liliana and start using that, or I can be a little more conservative and use Opposition Agent. The fact that he has Arid Mesa in play is a strong indication to me that I need to actually just chill here for a second and see if he runs his Mesa into my Opposition Agent, which would reduce him down to 0 permanents in addition to giving me a tutor effect. So I decided to just wait here. And lo and behold, McDonk can't resist. And he sacks his Arid Mesa. Oh boy, you never ever want to see your opponent sacking a fetch land and getting 3 mana in response to you sacking a fetch land in this format, because lo and behold, utterly backbreaking. All right, so we can take a look at his deck. Remember, I suspected that he had that combo. There's Oracle, of course. Does he have Brain Freeze? Yes, he does. And there's Breach. Yeah, so he's got all this stuff. This is very much sort of boilerplate. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of latitude for individual design in this archetype. Certainly, the amount of triomes that he's running seems a little unusual to me, given some of the other deck lists that I've seen. But otherwise, the deck looks pretty damn good. Lots of great interaction. It's another like Windfall style card, I guess. Necropotence. Yeah, seems pretty good. Unfortunately, you need mana to make a deck like this run. And he has none. I'm going to steal his Badlands also, because 2 is better than 1. All right, so what is he doing here? Okay. Oh, that's right, Simian Spirit Guide. That's weird. What's all that about? Burning Inquiry. I'm confused by what just happened there. How did all this stuff go to the graveyard? What did I miss? He must have just cast Simian Spirit Guide and then cast Burning Inquiry. Okay. Yeah, you can see a bunch of crap under the graveyard. I don't know why I jumped past that so fast. In my defense, this game was played a long time ago. But I'm not really sure what happened there. So he removed Simian Spirit Guide. I think it just jumped through the turn really fast, which is a problem, obviously, with the UI. So he exiled a Simian Spirit Guide from the game to cast Burning Inquiry, discarded Dispel, Vampiric Tutor, and Dockside Extortionist. Not too bad, actually. And I threw away Karn, Vandal Blast, more Artifact Kill, and Coalition Relic. All right, so he's going to play Chrome Mox. His hand size is getting very small again, but he doesn't really have a lot of flexibility at this point. He's just got to try to do something. But he's back to 3 mana again after losing all of his mana. I draw Fire Covenant. Yeah, I'm going to play Liliana, get that last card out of his hand. I believe I can afford to throw away probably the City of Brass. Away goes Time Twister, Jesus. All right, well, lots of comeback effects, but none of them matter if they're in the graveyard, at least not until he draws Underworld Breach, which he could draw at any point and start the game all over again. But I got to destroy all his mana, of course, and that means by force comes down and smashes 2 more artifacts. Look how much mana I've killed this game. Killed Exotic Orchard, Mox Diamond, Mana Crypt, Arid Mesa, Chrome Mox, and Talisman. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, this is like Containment 101. Bash him for 3. I've got my opponent almost completely no permanented here. I can't imagine he's going to do much else, but McDonk's a nice, polite guy, so he's just going to hang around. He plays a useless Misty Rainforest. I draw Deretti. Pretty delicious. All right. I'm just going to use the Lotus to ramp out Tevish that. I could save it, but I don't really see the reason, particularly as I'd like to draw cards first and see what I get. And I get Dust Bowl. Fantastic. I can play that before I play any mana. And then smash in for 3. And of course, immediately Dust Bowl away the command tower. You just see how oppressive Bullszat is. It's just, there's so many games that just go like this. Your opponent can just draw so much degeneracy. I mean, look what he's drawn this game. Tons of amazing cards. Chrome Mox, Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond, plenty of dual lands, Tutors, Time Twister, and Wheel, Gamble, everything. Like kind of all the pieces that this deck needs. He has 1 permanent in play that he can't even sack. That's how oppressive it can be. Just totally nuts. All right, so he just sacks that to give me another dual land at the end of the turn. Since it's pretty hopeless anyway, I draw the ultimate finisher that I don't even need to play as my opponent has no permanents at all. I'm going to bash for 3 here, play Deretti, make a token, make some more guys. No reason to even really level up Liliana. And with the writing fully on the wall, McDonk knows he is absolutely destroyed and dead. So he wishes me a GG and hopes we can have another game down the road, which I'm sure we will. And there it is, first game that I've recorded so far, I think since maybe my introductory video when we first built the deck, and it was definitely like in the prototype phase. I would call this deck much less of a prototype, much more approaching perfection. But a good demonstration of all the incredibly powerful and impressive tools in Bullszat. More games coming, probably a little bit closer actually, and stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.